Music and theatre on the show tonight. He is one of our foremost theatre actors, a spellbinding presence, a mesmerising storyteller. And she is one of the Midlands' premier songwriters with her tunes on the biggest stage in the world. And you think you don't like jazz? Well, there is a festival organisation that wants to prove you wrong. You're welcome this evening to Encore, where we bring you the best of what is happening in the arts in Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Encore on midlands103.com is the email address. Drop me a line at any stage. I'd be delighted to hear from you. And 083 30 10 103 is our Lamb Brothers Midlands 103 text line. Tonight on the show, as always, it's Claire O'Brien sitting in the hot seat with what is this evening a truly musical show. I am so excited to catch up with Larissa Tormey about her songwriting. She's a Kilbeggan woman, and it's a long time since I first met Larissa and heard her extraordinary story, and a little while too, I think, since she was on Encore with us. But she will be joining me on the programme to talk about the songwriting process, the collaboration process, and what makes a really great song for what is the biggest stage there is. Pat Kinavan, through the work that he has done with Fishamble Theatre, if ever the phrase show in a bag was understated, it is in connection with Pat. He has brought some of the most compelling and riveting and moving drama to the stage in recent years. If you've seen a Pat Kinavan show, you know exactly what I mean. Silent and Forgotten are the two most recent ones. And his new play is called Underneath. And he has been chatting to Midlands 103's Sinead Hubble about imposter syndrome, the business and the heartbreak of writing this play, and of course the performance that he will bring to the Esker Arts Centre in Tullamore tomorrow night. And you might remember that last week on the programme we had Bob Batty in studio to chat about Portlaoise Jazz Festival, and he gave me a couple of little musical inspirations to bring to you before the festival on St. Bridget's weekend, and that's going to be a great event in Portlaoise, and we'll be hearing a little bit of Lee Meehan later on. But speaking of music, we will start tonight, as we always do, with some brand new Irish music, and it is mellow and moving tonight in equal measure. Two male artists, one who might be familiar to you, and that is Cork's John Bleck. He has a brand new album out. And before that, we're going to hear Dubliner Aaron Rowe with Please Don't Hate Me. You're listening this evening to Encore on Midlands 103. Midlands 103. And that is John Bleck from his new album, The Midnight Ache. And before that, you heard Aaron Rowe, who I just think is just a terrific musician, terrific songwriter, terrific performer. I'm not the only one, because Ed Sheeran has chosen him to be one of his warm-up acts as he tours Australia next month. So if you're on the other side of the world, you can catch Aaron Rowe supporting Ed Sheeran. You're welcome back to Encore. All the little technical issues, which are entirely my fault, all sorted out. I am devastated that I didn't get an opportunity myself to chat to Pat Kinavan. He is just one of the most extraordinary people working on the stage in Ireland, working, of course, with Fishamble Theatre, directed by Jim Culloden, who is just one of Ireland's foremost directors. Fishamble is Ireland's playwriting theatre. That's one of the things they specialise in. And Pat has written and produced and pulled together 3 plays. This is the third one. It's called Underneath, with Jim Culloden and Pat Kinavan and my very lucky colleague Sinead Hubble had the chance to chat to him a little bit earlier on about Underneath, about the writing of the play, which you can see tomorrow night in Esker Arts Centre.
Well, Underneath, Sinead, it's now 12 years old, and 3 years before that, so 15 years ago, because it takes me about 3 years to put a show together and to write it and to kind of get it right in my head. Underneath is a piece that I wanted to write for a long, long time. I probably didn't have the confidence to write it, but I found it, thank God. And it's a very special play for me because it was something that I was always fascinated about, how, as human beings, how we put a particular emphasis on how somebody looks on the outside rather than focusing on the inside. And it's funny because even though the play is 12 years old, I think that whole obsession with aesthetic and faces and doing things to faces and putting more things into faces to make them pretty is even more obsessive now than it was when I wrote it. Yeah. The story of the play is the story of this girl, woman actually, and she is from the start. She tells you where she is, and she talks from her tomb, and it's a very funny piece as well as being very, very dark. And she talks and tells the story of how, as a child, she became disfigured and how society has treated her all her life up unto her death. So we go on an adventure with this woman, and she reveals things about herself and about other people. Particularly, the revelations are about how she was intimidated, how she was bullied for the way she looked, how she was forgotten, how she was pushed to the edges of society purely because of her physical appearance. And it kind of holds a mirror really up to all of us, but at the same time, we poke fun in the piece as well at kind of modern day obsession with cosmetic surgery, etc., etc. So that's really what it's about. But it's done from her tomb, and she speaks really from the other side. And so in that sense, it's a really, really theatrical piece. I have to say it's probably of the 5 pieces I have, it probably is the most way out there and theatrical. We just, last week, we performed it in Berlin. We had 2 performances there, Sinead, and that was a great place to do it because they have such an avant-garde sort of taste for theatre there, for highly theatrical theatre, and the audiences, even though it was, I did it in English. I did some bits of it in my school German, and it was like doing it in Tullamore. It was just people just the world over have the same reaction to the lines, and so we have an awful lot in common right across the globe, really, when it comes to universal topics like this.
Do you think it's important to mix humour when you've got something that's so dark like that to make it appeal to the audience?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, and I'll always go back to death. We are brilliant in this country of dealing with the darkest hour, which is, funerals and removals and all that kind of stuff. We're brilliant at it because we laugh at it. We dive into it. We immerse ourselves in the grief, but in order to get through it, we are usually the ones down the back of the church roaring, laughing, crying 1 minute, crying with laughter the next. And I think it's really important that I, as a worker, because I consider myself I come from a working class background, very working class background. So in the theatre, I'm a worker. I'm there to do a job. I'm there to entertain. I'm there to tell a story. But I have to tell that story to the people and give the people what they want. I have to give them the story, but I know they're there to be entertained. And there's nothing more entertaining, really, than being made to laugh. And it's important because there's a balance there then. I think by nature, Irish people, we're devils. Like, we love to skit, and sometimes people need to laugh to let out tension. And the heavier bits can really, tense people up. And then I suppose it's the law of the theatre, really, that you have to release that tension, and no better way to do it than to be howling, laughing, and especially beside somebody and looking at them laughing. So it's very important to me, that there is a balance in the pieces.
Pat, you mentioned at the start that you didn't have the confidence to write this play for a long time. What was holding you back?
That's a really great question. And you know what? Over the years, nobody has ever asked me that question. And I'll try and answer it as best I can. I couldn't really, I suppose, up to 15 years ago, I couldn't articulate what I was about to say in underneath. And I suppose I just had to dig deep in myself. I didn't think that I would have the words. I didn't think that I had the skill. I still don't think I have the skill. Sometimes it's mad. You just doubt yourself constantly, but that's the nature of the beast. But I think I was probably going into at that stage, I was in my mid-40s, and I thought, you know what, you're coming up to 50 years of age now, and stop putting yourself down and stop, get out of your own way, really, is what I said to myself. If you really want to write about this, just, get on with it and stop feeling sorry for yourself and doubting yourself. So I had to have a really, really good chat with myself about that. Maybe I didn't think that I had the skill really to write it. And that's the same now. I'm 60 next year, and I still feel the same. I feel, every time an idea comes, it's great to get the idea, but the next part is, well, how do you get it out? How do you express it? But somehow, and in some way, working with brilliant director Jim Cullerton and with Fish Amble, they gave me the time, they gave me the space, we had 3 years to really find a way of telling the story the best way I could in a theatre, and thanks be to God, it did come out. But it's like anybody in any sort of creative capacity. There's always a battle there, Sinead, with your own self-confidence. And then I would be by nature a very, very quiet person, but you put me on the stage and I have no fear at all. So it's kind of mad and twisted, but that's where I will feel safe. And I'll say things on the stage that I wouldn't say in real life. Do you know what I mean?
And we can be our own worst enemies when it comes to that, about having that imposter syndrome and not having the confidence to go forward. But when you're comfortable in your own skin, like you are on stage, then it all comes out.
Well, the imposter syndrome is exactly it. I think when I came into the arts first, that was 36 years ago, I started working, and thank God I'm still going strong. I was only a young fella, and I moved to Dublin, and I found that I was so lucky because people gave me chances. But it was almost as if I was watching somebody else's story, because I found that the arts then was very kind of middle class, and that's not where I came from. And I was surrounded by lovely, lovely people, but a lot of them were from middle class backgrounds. And I'm a rural boy, you know what I mean? I'm a country boy. And I remember saying to myself, what's wrong with me? I'm getting on with the work, but I had an imposter syndrome to some extent, but I had to banish it. Like, if I was to survive, I really had to be hard on myself. Because I think the arts, and particularly we say if there's young people down in Tullamore, and anyone's listening from that bracket, the arts belong to everybody. The arts don't belong to a particular class, and we have to beat that out of the sort of myth that's there. Unfortunately, now a lot of people will say are returning that way. Like, if you're to study in Dublin, you have to come from mostly an upper middle class family in order to rent in Dublin and go to study theatre in Dublin. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the people that are doing it, but the balance is going off again. So it's almost as if 36 years later, it's turning again. And I think it belongs to everybody. And I suppose that was my fighting spirit. I thought, you're a working class boy, you belong here too.
How long did it take you to write Underneath?
It took me, Sinead, I would say the guts of a year and a half to get the actual first draft together. Now, it changed spectacularly as well, parts of it, over the following year and a half. So when you're in rehearsal, pieces that you think will work, when you're writing them, when you get up on the floor to rehearse them, sometimes they just don't work, and you can try them, and it's like kicking a dead horse. It's not going to get up. It's really weird. It has that. It fascinates me every time that when you're putting a piece together, that usually the things you think that are not going to work, they actually will surprise you, and they'll work beautifully. So yeah, about a year and a half for the first actual draft, in paper. Yeah.
And what else have you coming up now, Pat? Are you working on anything at the minute?
Well, I'm touring. This is part, and I'm so looking forward to. I'm so looking forward to Esper, because we were down there just in the autumn, and I love it down there. And Sean, he's an amazing man. The program he puts together there. So that's part of a spring tour. Thank God I'm doing all 5 shows in different venues up until April, and that's going to keep me really busy. So I'll be swapping from one show to the other, which is I love, because it's a good challenge,
I imagine that's very difficult, though, to remember what play is happening, what night, and where you're going to go.
Well, I have it all. I have it all carefully, forensically written down, but I do study in between, so I make sure that I'm right up there with the text, and technically as well. I'm working with an amazing technical crew. Pius and Stephanie are coming down for the show tomorrow night, and they do a spectacular job on lights and on sound. There's a huge sound design in this show as well, and the lights are spectacular. So I'm supported. I don't feel like that I'm by myself. There's a company of us. There's a lot of people have put a lot of work into the piece, visually, the way it's styled, everything. And the composer, Dennis Glassy, done a beautiful job. The Esker has an amazing kit of lights and an amazing sound system, so it will be at its best in Esker. I love it down there, and it's wonderful that it's right slap in the middle of the town. I think it's an example really to a lot of towns to have their kind of cultural centre right in the middle of the street. I love it.
It's a big congratulations, isn't it, to all the people who worked so hard to bring the Esker Arts Centre into being, and Tullamore that waited so long for it to happen. To have the praise and encouragement of a performer like Pat Kinavan is great recognition. Do not be misled by how gentle and lovely Pat is in an interview, because he is on stage a shapeshifter. And it's really interesting that this play is about appearance, because, the man you see in one moment is very different to the man you see in the next moment. He has an extraordinary physical kind of theatre that I think if you haven't seen Pat Kinavan before on stage, you will be blown away by in the Esker Arts Centre tomorrow. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back it will be to chat to songwriter Larissa Tormey, because she is doing great things. You're listening to Encore here this evening on Midlands 103. Stay with us.
Midlands 103.
There is no shortage of talent in the Midlands, and we are blessed to have singers and singer-songwriters. I know Hubert Murray is pulling together an amazing night of performances tomorrow at Joe Lee's in Tullamore. If the theatre is not your thing, the music will be there. But one of our, I suppose, most behind the scenes and most in front of the scenes songwriters in the country, and indeed here in the Midlands, is Larissa Tormey. And many of you will know her from listening to her on Joe Cooney's programme, from hearing her wonderful voice, her singing voice, from all of the charity events that she does for a variety of different causes. But in recent years, she has really made a name for herself as a songwriter, and brought her skills to the biggest stage in the biggest musical stage in the world, really, which was the Eurovision last year. And this year she's hoping to do it all over again with a song for a Croatian, for Croatia to enter in the competition. And Larissa joins me on air. Larissa, you're so welcome back to Encore after quite a long break.
Thank you so much for having me, Claire. Lovely.
It's always lovely to talk to you. Tell me a little bit about the songwriting process for you, and where you begin with a song, if you are writing on your own, first of all.
Well, all of my life, all of my life I used to write myself. So my own process will be very different, for example, than co-writing. So I usually write the lyrics, and then because I play piano, I just sit down, then with the lyrics think, and melody kind of comes, and that's my way to write my own songs. But I kind of broke into all this new way of songwriting 2 years ago, and that was actually terribly stressful because I had to learn to write the songs all over again.
Okay, we'll come back to talking about the songwriting and the collaborating and that very different skill. But my recollection from the very first time that I spoke to you for a long interview that we did for a newspaper in the Midlands that is no longer in existence, unfortunately. My memory from that time is of you telling me of your own musical heritage in the former Soviet Union, and the prevalence of music and classical music, because you are classically trained as a pianist and as a vocalist, and and the involvement of music in the lives of young people and high culture in small towns in the old Soviet Union. Will you bring me back to that a little bit and just give us a little bit of context?
Yeah, you see, when I was growing up, so I mean, there was everything in Soviet Union was free, all the education, music education, sport education for kids. And because people kind of didn't have much money, the wages were very small, and everything else was kind of supplied by government. So whole focus was, or people's focus was, to compete in art and maybe literature. So that was what people mostly would like to do. And education was very, very high quality. So I mean, we had every small town had a good theater and good kind of concert, cultural hall, I would say, where anybody can go in the evening, like after work, or children after school, to improve whatever they want to do, to be an artist or to sing or to play instrument or to dance. But also, Soviet Union had professional schools, music schools, where not every child can go. So you had to be examined first. So if you have all the necessary talents, like music, perfect pitch, rhythm, stuff like that, then they examine you, and then you will be entered into music school. And that was very intense. So you would be in normal school first part of the day, and then music school second part of the day, and it would take 7 years.
Which is an enormous commitment to your craft at a young age.
Yeah, well, you see, huge countries like this, I'm not sure about other, but I think because Soviet Union was so huge and the competitiveness was much higher, I'd say, because, I mean, you have to make it among, like I don't know, thousands and thousands of people. It's still the same. So pressure, I'd say, was much bigger this way.
And then you come to Ireland, and you get involved in country music and folk music, which is very different from the classically trained voice that you would have used back, in your early days. What was the draw for you with country music and folk music? How did that resonate?
It wasn't really different, because I was educated as a classical musician in Soviet Union because you had to. In Soviet Union, in order to get a job as a musician, professional musician, and be paid, you need to have a degree. So if you can't sing and play instrument and tour, but nobody will pay you. But if you want to be paid and work in musician, you had to have an education. And education was only classical. So I always wanted to be a songwriter, singer-songwriter. So I went, and I finished the classical singing and piano degree because I knew that then I will be able to use it in my music career. And then when I finished university, I went straight on the road and I sang pop music. I was writing contemporary pop for myself and for other people. And I had also school for children, gifted children, and I wrote songs for children. But because I am actually my nationality, I'm not Russian at all.
Oh.
We have 126 nationalities in Russia. Everybody speaks their own language and different cultures. So my dad was from a Muslim background, nationality a bit like Turkish. It's called Tatars.
Tatars. Yeah.
And he didn't speak Russian until 25. And mom was from Belarus. So I grew up in a very multicultural family. And then I started to sing in all of these languages. And I actually sang Tatar folk music. When I moved on to Moscow, I had a show with like Eastern vibe show where I sang in that language. So it wasn't actually that far. Folk always was part of my music. And as a songwriter, even in Soviet Union, I was taking inspiration from that music, national music. And when I ended up on the farm here, then and I just tried to write, to experiment and write something in the country. And my first intention was to write for somebody else, but I kind of tried and I said people liked it as well. And I said, okay, I want to be on the stage for a while for a few years, and that's how I ended up to sing country and folk. And I must say, I love Irish folk music. I love Irish folk. It's like an ocean of inspiration, endless ocean.
Well, you've got all of that in your package of skills, and then you decided you were going to do a little bit more in terms of the songwriting. You were writing your own material for others. Tell me about the Rena songwriting camp in Norway. You were telling me about that in 2024, and you were saying that was hard work.
Yeah, it was like a lot of things in my life. It was kind of pure accident because I didn't really know that this sort of songwriting exists, and I just decided. I saw on Facebook that camp was advertised, and it was in Spain on the sea, and I kind of needed a holiday, so I went.
A working holiday.
I thought it would be something easy because I write music, you see, but it wasn't. That was not Arena. That was a Spanish songwriting camp organized by DWB Music in UK, who are my publishers now. So I ended up in that camp, and it was huge stress. I didn't realize that people write music like that at all.
And when you say stress and people write music like that, how was the experience different? Take us into the writing room, because lots of people are familiar with the idea of the writing room where a song comes together. But you take us in there. Let's hear what it's like.
Yeah. So you walk into the room mostly it's a 3 or 4 people, so it has to be a singer and a producer, songwriter, lyricist, and 4 people, so absolute strangers. You never saw them before. And then during this day, from 10 o'clock in the morning, finish at 7 o'clock in the evening, you have to have completely finished and produced product that we can release tomorrow. It's not demo; it's completely finished song.
Okay.
So it's a pressure, and the way the young generation writing songs now, like everybody does a little bit of everything. So I might say a word, another person say a word, and then lyrics, and then melody will come in bits of pieces. It's like a puzzle put together, and then producer sits in there and puts the beats and instruments. So it's all happening simultaneously at the same time. It's completely different than to write song on your own.
So take us... Yeah, go on.
Sometimes it's a great success. Sometimes, it's because it's a human factor, like who will you end up with? You don't know, will it work or not work? So sometimes it's disappointment. Sometimes, most of the times, it's very good.
Yeah. And writing, tell us about then writing Like a Party last year that represented Ireland in the Eurovision, writing that with Emmy. What was that experience like? Obviously a bit easier, I imagine.
Yeah, it was. It was like the match made in heaven. I knew that this will be a special song nearly from the very start as I walked into the room. So I went to Norwegian songwriting camp, and it was one of the biggest, lots of people in there. And that was the last day of the camp when we only had 3 hours. We didn't even had a full day. And I was lying in bed night before and thinking, it's no way we can finish a song in 3 hours. So it has to be something that already maybe half written, maybe somebody has an idea or something like this. So I walked into the room and I see this little girl, very shy. And I had no idea that she's so popular, that she has so much following and everything. She's very humble, very shy. And I was told she's a singer, she's going to sing at this song. And I sat in front of her and I said, Emmy, have you anything in mind that you want to write? Like you're going to sing this song, maybe something that you already have started that we can work on. And then she said to me, do you know what? She said, we have a tradition to play game of questions and answers at home with the family. And my dad told me about this little dog who went to space and the dog died. So I was thinking, she said, I just was thinking there is a phrase like a party in the sky. I just don't want her to die. I want her to party forever. What do you think? And I just stared at her. I said, do you know where I'm from, Amy? She said, no, I said, I'm from Soviet Union. And that was the story of my childhood.
So take us from Like a Party and its success and, you know, move away from 2025 and now into 2026 and the work that you've been doing with Rebecca Lane, Philippe Nicolau and Bonnie Max and this new song, which is Uninterrupted, which Noel is going to sing.
Noel, yeah. So as soon as Eurovision was over in May, I was signed to publisher, and my contract, my publisher specializing in Eurovision, they providing Eurovision songs for all the countries. We write and then they pitching the songs. So as soon as I finished, I started to write for the next year from June on, and I pitched my songs to 7 countries.
Okay.
And it's very competitive market.
I bet
very
it
hard
is.
work. Very. But because it's going on now for 2 years, and naturally you create connections with certain people and who become your friends. 2 Irish songwriters become my close friends. The guy from Dublin, who is Bonnie Max, right?
Yeah.
And Rebecca Lane, she actually grew up in France, but she's Irish as well, Irish family, a very talented girl. So 3 of us are great friends, and we just decided to start writing here in Kilbeggan. And I invited them to my house, and I said, let's write something. And that was actually our first visit, their first visit to me. And they arrived, 2 of them, and we started to write song, and it kind of didn't work. It was very hard going. And I said, listen, just stop, let's go and have a dinner. So I fed them. Them with the stroganoff. And as soon as we came back, we wrote the song Uninterrupted. It's about Rebecca mostly, but me too. We were bullied at school, both of us. So we wanted to write something about this, to be strong and be able to stand for yourself. And then I was on the search for the singer because I had to find the singer who will match this song, and I needed somebody who danced. So I find Noel. She's from Croatia. I pitched the song, she loved it, and that's it. That's what happened. Then she submitted this song to Croatian Eurovision, and she was picked for the final.
So that's where things are at the moment. We're going to catch up with you again afterwards when we hear how this goes. But will you introduce now this song for our audience? And thank you so much for talking to us this evening.
Thank you so very much for having me. Yeah. So you want to hear the song. This is the name of the song, Uninterrupted, and this is the Croatian entry, but the song written by Irish songwriters. And we going to perform. She's going to perform in Croatia, 12th of February. So it will be online actually on YouTube, Croatian final. So please watch.
Please watch. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening, Larissa, and all the best. We'll talk to you again soon. And here's Uninterrupted. That is 2 minutes and 58 seconds of perfect pop music all the way from Kilbeggan after a bowl of stroganoff. There must be something amazing in Larissa Tormey's stroganoff. There you go. We'll catch up on the progress of that song. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to move jazzways. Talk to you after the break.
Midlands 103.
And we are almost there on the programme this evening. Just a couple of little things I want to mention to you before we finish out. Jason Byrne is in the Mullingar Arts Centre on Saturday night with his particular brand of comedy. In Byrne you can catch Norma Sheehan's. It's wine o'clock this weekend. Portarlington Music Society. And we had them on the programme last week. Phenomenal people involved in that on Saturday night and Sunday night in the Parochial Hall in Portarlington. The play Exit Routes. And as part of Portlaoise Jazz Festival, which is happening on the February bank holiday weekend, one of the big performers, it will be Lee Meehan, and he is on the Dunmace stage on the Friday the 30th of February. And I'm just going to bring you, this is 8 minutes long, this track, but I'm going to bring you just a couple of minutes to take us to the end of the show. The great Joe Cooney, I do believe, is in the building, and he will be in after the news at 8 o'clock with the best of Irish and American country music. And I, of course, will be back in this seat again next week. 083 30 10 103, the Lamb Brothers Midlands 103 text line, and Encore at midlands103.com if you want to get in touch. Take care of yourself. Good night.